Yes, folks. Jacinda Ardern cynically gets behind the COVID-19 podium and expresses her sadness over the deaths this virus has caused, while at the same time she peddles in the culture of death. Yes, her teeth sparkle with joy over the notion of Leftarian David Seymour's end-of-life choice bill, aka the killing of old sick people bill. Now, all of these emotionally driven bills start off the same way. They start off with compassion and have tight restrictions around them, but they all end up a free-for-all. The homosexual law reform bill started the same way, and now look at the mess we're in. And the decriminalisation of abortion sometime back in the 70s started off the same way, and now look where we are. It's now open slather on living babies. We now have abortion on demand, gender selection abortions, abortions up to birth, and infanticide after birth. And if that's not bad enough, we're now legally killing off our own culture, and I'll get to that in a moment. But first, Sanity for Sweden explains this abortion darkness very well indeed.
Good morning. I'm sure you have this experience that there is dark people and bright people. And it's not their smiles. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's not about their bodies at all. The grumpiest old bastard can be a bright person. So you have to watch what they do. Yeah. And actually you can feel it. When you come close to a dark person, you will feel it. Yeah. You will feel awkward. That's the thing. And what about dark leaders? People might have this idea that this is a thing of the past. The dark leaders, like Stalin or Hitler, or. But the thing is, they are here right now. Of course they are. They don't go away. So we have them at high positions today. Yeah. And some of them are political leaders, of course. Now, who is the darkest leader that we have? I don't know. But I have a very strong candidate. That's what I think. It's a woman, Jacinda Ardern. Jacinda Ardern. She's the PM of New Zealand. And I will tell you why. New Zealand, they are now getting the most extreme abortion law in the world. Yeah. Thanks to Jacinda Ardern. So I will just tell you about this law. Yeah, it's really dark, it is. Abortion will now be available on demand for any reason up to birth. Sex-selective abortion will be legalized. Wow. Which means, of course, if you want a girl and it's a boy, you can have an abortion because you didn't like the gender. Yeah, this is making me feel sick. All right, the current 20-week limit for disability selective abortion will be scrapped. And abortion will be available up to birth for disabilities. Yeah. There will be no legal requirement that babies born alive after a failed abortion are given medical support. So they just let them die. Wow, yeah. So is this okay with the guys, with the people in New Zealand? Of course not. It's good people in New Zealand. The way they did it, the government in New Zealand, is very dark. Yeah. Only 2% of the women in New Zealand support abortion being available on demand up to birth. Only 2% support this. Yeah, they did it this way. Jacinda Ardern's government, they rushed the bill through Parliament while the MPs and media and everybody else was distracted with dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah. Right, that's how it is. Please, people of New Zealand get rid of this very, very dark leader that you have. Please, do it. She shouldn't be in any political or power position whatsoever, ever, never. You see?
Yes, we most certainly see. Now, not only is abortion grotesque, it also plays a major part in the killing off of our culture. Anyway, hat tip to David Bradley for the next video.
I think we've covered, but we're going to move straight into our first video now, and just move that out of the way. Our first video is just under 10 minutes long, but it's extremely shocking, and it talks about demographics and immigration, and also about what uses footage to show what Britain and what the West is going to be like under the current demographic trends. So we'll go straight into our first video of the evening. We'll watch that, and then we shall be straight back to start this live broadcast, to start our discussion.
Yeah, now, even though this video is quite old, and some of the statements in it haven't really been substantiated properly, the general premise of it is real, and it is still very pertinent today.
According to research, in order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, there must be a fertility rate of 2.11 children per family. With anything less, the culture will decline. Historically, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. A rate of 1.3, impossible to reverse, because it would take 80 to 100 years to correct itself, and there is no economic model that can sustain a culture during that time. In other words, if two sets of parents each have one child, there are half as many children as parents. If those children have one child, then there are 1/4 as many grandchildren as grandparents. If only 1 million babies are born in 2006, it's hard to have 2 million adults enter the workforce in 2026. As the population shrinks, so does the culture.
Yes, and abortions don't help either. Millions of babies are aborted in the West every year. Just in New Zealand alone, 13,282 were aborted in 2018.
As of 2007, the fertility rate in France was 1.8, England 1.6, Greece 1.3, Germany 1.3, Italy 1.2, Spain 1.1. Across the entire European Union of 31 countries, the fertility is a mere 1.38. Historical research tells us these numbers are impossible to reverse. In a matter of years, Europe as we know it will cease to exist. Yet the population of Europe is not declining. Why? Immigration. Islamic immigration. Of all population growth in Europe since 1990, 90% has been Islamic immigration. France, 1.8 children per family. Muslims, 8.1. In southern France, traditionally one of the most populated church regions in the world, there are now more mosques than churches. 30% of children ages 20 and younger are Islamic. In the larger cities such as Nice,
Yes, we're aborting our children for this.
Marseille, and Paris, that number has grown to 45%. By 2027, 1 in 5 Frenchmen will be Muslim. In just 39 years, France will be an Islamic republic. In the last 30 years, the Muslim population of Great Britain rose from 82,000 to 2.5 million, a 30-fold increase. There are over 1,000 mosques, many of them former churches. In the Netherlands, 50% of all newborns are Muslim, and in only 15 years, half of the population of the Netherlands will be Muslim. In Russia, there are over 23 million Muslims. That's 1 out of 5 Russians. 40% of the entire Russian army will be Islamic in just a few short years. Currently in Belgium, 25% of the population and 50% of all newborns are Muslim. The government of Belgium has stated 1/3 of all European children will be born to Muslim families by 2025, just 17 years away. The German government, the first to talk about this publicly, recently released a statement saying, "The fall in the German population can no longer be stopped. Its downward spiral is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state by the year 2050. Muammar al-Gaddafi of Libya said, "There are signs that Allah will grant victory to Islam in Europe without swords, without guns, without conquest. We don't need terrorists. We don't need homicide bombers. The 50+ million Muslims in Europe would turn it into a Muslim continent within a few decades."
Exactly.
There are currently 52 million Muslims in Europe. The German government said that number is expected to double in the next 20 years to 104 million. Closer to home, the numbers tell a similar story. Right now, Canada's fertility rate is 1.6, nearly a full point below what is required to sustain a culture. And Islam is now the fastest growing religion. Between 2001 and 2006, Canada's population increased by 1.6 million, 1.2 of those immigration. In the United States, the current fertility rate of American citizens is 1.6. With the influx of the Latino nations, the rate increases to 2.11, the bare minimum required to sustain a culture. In 1970, there were 100,000 Muslims in America. Today, there are over 9 million. The world is changing. It's time to wake up.
Civil war breaks out. Yes, I can clearly see this is going to happen at some point. Millions of Africans pour into South Europe. Now, how true is that? We've been witnessing that for the past few years now.
Now, I'm pretty sure we all agree that that was a very scary look into the future across the West. Very scary to know that this is what lays in store for our children and grandchildren. I'm sure you agree, Paul.
Well, yeah, it's potentially very frightening.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've been hearing it for years. Demographics is destiny. We are being replaced in our own homelands all across the West.
I think when you see a video like that and you see the images and how graphic it is, it's a real eye-opener for people. That was the first time I've watched that, and I will not let that be my son's future.
And nor should you. Anyway, back to our dark leader for a moment.
Yeah, just have a very quick. Yeah, I'll come with it.
President Trump's decision to suspend funding for the World Health Organization.
Oh, sorry, was that for me or? Yes. Look, my view and the view of New Zealand and those, of course, who engage directly with the World Health Organization, really important body. At a time like this, where we need to be sharing information, where we need to have advice that we can rely on, the World Health Organization has provided that, and we will.
Wow, you lying piece of filth. You know very well that Tedros covered up for China. And you know he has caused this lockdown. And you know he has stuffed our economy. Yet here you are defending him. You're just a piece of filth. Very dark indeed. Yes, our dear leader is most certainly the darkest leader New Zealand has ever had. She's Helen Clark and John Key on steroids. But where to from here? Well, it doesn't look promising to me. If she pulls off this lockdown nonsense without too many deaths and without the economy in complete ruin, we could very well be stuck with her for another 3 years. Wake up, New Zealand.